The crystalline spires of Zenther Prime pierced through violet clouds, casting ethereal shadows across the royal palace. Queen Alexa stood on her observation deck, her luminescent silver skin shimmering under the light of 3 distant suns. Her eyes, deep pools of cosmic purple, gazed at the viewing screen before her with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. "A human," she whispered, her voice carrying the melodic resonance typical of her species. "They expect me to marry a human." The Galactic Council had been clear: to prevent the escalating war between the Zenthri Empire and the Terran Alliance, a union must be formed. And Alexa, as the most powerful queen in 12 star systems, had been chosen to wed a human diplomat. The very thought made her pulse with indignation. Humans were considered primitive, their lifespans barely a flicker compared to her 3 centuries of existence. Her advisor, Chancellor Vrix, bowed his crystalline head. "Your Majesty, the human arrives within the hour. His name is Jackson Reed, a decorated officer of the Terran Space Corps." "An officer?" Alexa scoffed. "What could a human possibly offer me? They can't manipulate energy. They can't phase through matter. They age and wither like dying stars." Yet the Council's decree was absolute. Refusal meant war. And even Alexa's considerable powers couldn't protect her people from a conflict that would span galaxies. When Jackson's shuttle landed in the royal hangar, Alexa watched from her throne room, her posture rigid with royal dignity. She expected a typical human, soft, fragile, dependent on their primitive technology. What she saw made her pause. Jackson Reed walked with quiet confidence, his tall frame moving with an economy of motion that spoke of military training. His dark hair was neat, his uniform crisp, but it was his eyes that caught her attention. They were gray, like storm clouds over Earth's oceans, and they held no fear, no awe, no desperation, just calm assessment. He bowed respectfully when presented to her, but not obsequiously. "Queen Alexa, I'm honored to meet you, are you?" she replied coolly, descending from her throne. Her form towered over him by nearly a foot, her royal garments flowing like liquid starlight. "Or are you simply resigned to your fate, human?" "I prefer Jackson," he said with a slight smile. "And I don't believe in fate. I believe in choices." The response surprised her. Most beings trembled in her presence. "You have chosen nothing. This arrangement was made by politicians and generals." "True," Jackson acknowledged, "but I chose to accept it. There's a difference." Over the following days, Alexa tried to ignore Jackson's presence, but he proved impossible to overlook. He didn't fawn over her power or beauty as other suitors had. Instead, he explored the palace, asked questions about Zenthri culture, and spent hours in the royal library studying their history. "Why do you bother?" Alexa finally asked him one evening, finding him in the meditation gardens. "You cannot understand our civilization in your brief lifetime." Jackson looked up from the holographic text he was reading. "Maybe not completely, but understanding begins with trying. Your people have achieved remarkable things, your energy manipulation techniques, your philosophical frameworks, your art. It's fascinating." Alexa felt something unfamiliar: respect for a human opinion. "And what do humans have to offer in return? Your technology is centuries behind ours." "Maybe," Jackson said, standing to face her. "But we have something you've forgotten." "And what is that?" "Adaptability, resilience, the power that comes from knowing we're fragile." Alexa laughed, a sound like chiming crystal. "Fragility is weakness, is it?" Jackson's gray eyes held hers. "Your people live for centuries. You've become comfortable, static. When was the last time Zenthri Prime faced a real challenge?" The question struck deeper than Alexa wanted to admit. It was true that her civilization had grown complacent, resting on ancient achievements. The revelation of Jackson's true power came unexpectedly. An assassination attempt during the pre-wedding ceremony shattered the evening's peace. Rebel factions, opposed to the human alliance, launched a coordinated attack. Energy weapons tore through the palace shields. Alexa's guards fell, their crystalline forms shattering under the assault. Alexa raised her hands, summoning her considerable power. Energy crackled around her, forming defensive barriers. But there were too many attackers, coming from too many angles. Even her legendary abilities couldn't protect everyone. Then Jackson moved. What happened next left Alexa stunned. Jackson didn't have energy manipulation powers. He couldn't phase through walls or project force fields. But what he did have was something far more dangerous: tactical brilliance born from human warfare, physical capabilities honed through Earth's harsh gravity, and a mind that processed threats with lightning speed. He moved like flowing water, using the environment itself as a weapon. A shattered crystal column became a projectile. An energy weapon, torn from an attacker's grasp, was redirected with devastating precision. He didn't fight with power, he fought with intelligence, turning every disadvantage into an advantage. But it was more than his combat prowess. As the battle raged, Jackson coordinated the surviving guards, shouting orders that made tactical sense even to Alexa's experienced military mind. He identified the attacker's pattern, predicted their movements, and systematically dismantled their strategy. And when a rebel commander cornered a group of civilians, Jackson didn't hesitate. He threw himself between them and the energy blast, his body absorbing damage that should have killed him instantly. Yet somehow, through sheer force of will and human stubbornness, he remained standing. "Protect the Queen," he shouted, blood streaming from a wound on his shoulder. "I've got the civilians." Alexa felt something break inside her, the carefully constructed wall of superiority she'd maintained. Here was this human, this supposedly primitive being, sacrificing himself for her people without a second thought. She unleashed her full power then, not to protect herself, but to protect him. Energy exploded from her in waves of pure force, overwhelming the remaining attackers. In seconds, the threat was neutralized. When silence fell, Alexa rushed to Jackson's side. He was kneeling, breathing hard, but alive. The civilians he'd protected gathered around him, their crystalline faces filled with gratitude. "You fool," Alexa whispered, her hands glowing as she channeled healing energy into his wounds. "You could have died." Jackson looked up at her, that slight smile returning despite his pain. "Worth it. Why?" The question came out more desperately than she intended. "Because they're your people. And if we're going to make this alliance work, they need to be my people too." In that moment, Alexa understood. True power wasn't about energy manipulation or long lifespans or advanced technology. True power was the willingness to stand when standing seemed impossible, to protect others at the cost of yourself, to adapt and overcome despite overwhelming odds. Humans didn't live for centuries, but they lived fully in every moment they had. That intensity, that desperate, beautiful fragility, that was their power. The wedding proceeded a week later. As Alexa and Jackson stood before the Galactic Council, hands joined, she no longer saw a primitive human. She saw her equal, her partner, and perhaps something more. "I was wrong about humans," she whispered to him during the ceremony. Jackson squeezed her hand gently. "And I was wrong about alien queens. Turns out you're not so scary after all." Alexa smiled, a genuine smile that lit up her luminescent features. "Don't let word of that spread. I have a reputation to maintain." As the three sons of Zenther Prime set behind them, casting the palace in shades of gold and purple, a new alliance was born, not just between empires, but between two souls who had discovered that true power comes in many forms, and sometimes the greatest strength lies in embracing what makes us different.